Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. The Canadiens find a way somehow to win 3-1 against the Carolina Hurricanes. Their second win against the Hurricanes in 5 days here, and this one is just highway robbery in my opinion. There's just no reason why the Canadiens should be walking out of the Lenovo Center with a win here, but nonetheless, it's our win. It's a 5-game streak going on right now. We've won 5 in a row there. Obviously, of course, it doesn't mean anything in terms of the standings right now because Boston somehow pulls off a shootout win. They were down 3-2 and then scored with 11 seconds left. They got themselves 2 points in that one. So, obviously our lead has not really changed at all over the last couple days here, but nonetheless, we're still, finding a way to get points here. We're on a 5-game win streak. That's the longest streak that we've had all season long here. So, very impressive work from the Canadiens to find things, we're making things happen. We're continuing to find ways to win. And this is exactly what we did last season. It's exactly where we need to be, is finding a way to win when the going gets tough and we're down into the last, 10 games of the season here. It's great to see, guys finding a way to get the wins here. So all around great effort from the guys here. And when I say effort, I really mean, Jakub Dobeš. He was the one who really made this game work out for us. He was completely, out of his mind playing in this game today. A little bit of scare there. He might not be 100%. It looked like he may have pulled something a little bit at the end of that first period there, but he did come back and play the remainder of the 2 periods and looked just about as good as he did in the first there. So, obviously that's something to look at as we go forward here because, it's going to be interesting to see, if he's injured. Hopefully that's not the case. I mean, I would not be surprised if that, left an imprint a little bit, but, just add it to the list of injuries that guys are probably already playing through as we go through this season. I'm sure Suzuki isn't exactly, at his best right now. Everybody's kind of, nursing something a little bit as we go through here. So hopefully it's just a little bit of a blemish on Dobeš there and not something that's going to carry him, take him out for long term, but only time will tell. Of course, it'll be interesting to see what happens as we go along there. But he played absolutely unbelievable in this one. He's the only reason why the Canadiens were even, in contention to win this one. He had an absolutely amazing performance, 971 save percentage there. He played fucking incredible. He got 34 saves in this one. He played out of his mind in this one, especially in that first period. Andrei Svechnikov will score the first goal of the game for the Canes. It was one that I feel like Dobeš might have even wanted back, which is funny to say considering how good he was in this entire game. But, I feel like it was a shot with no screen or whatever from the right side and just kind of gets wired in the top corner there. Maybe one he could have been a little bit more well-positioned on. But either way, I think, in general, the Canadiens outside of Dobeš were playing absolutely terrible in that first period there. So it was just not... It's not surprising that we go into the first intermission down 1 there. It's surprising only that we weren't down even more than that. There were so many shots on net. It took ages for the Canadiens to even get one shot on net on Freddie Anderson there at all. So not a great look at all. I felt like it was going to be a scheduled loss a little bit. The Canadiens were not looking great at all, but for whatever reason they like Dobeš kind of helps them stay in this one and they find a way to turn things around as the game went along. Very similar to what happened in the last game we played against the Canes 5 days ago. It seems like they come on really hot and heavy, and if we're not able to sustain pressure the other way, it's gonna eventually come to bite us, and that's exactly what happens with that Svechnikov goal. Then we go into the second period here. So more to the same, really, is what I would say. We did not start the second period very hot either, but all of a sudden, we get a little transition offense going. Lane Hutson gets a nice stretch pass that finds Cole Caufield, kind of streaking in the far blue line there. It looks like he's going to go all the way in, but his Wisconsin teammate, Keandre Miller, is tracking him down, so he makes a nice kind of stop back, pulls up and gives a nice, feed over to Nick Suzuki, who just slides that one through the 5-hole there for the first goal of the game for the Canadiens. It's Nick Suzuki's 25th goal of the season. Cole Caufield, it's his 33rd assist there, and Lane Hutson is 61st. So all around impressive stuff there. It was good. I really like the idea from Caufield. I feel like, especially when you're in his position and he's trying to, do everything he can to get to that 50 goal mark, you really think that he might be shooting in that situation. So I think that's even more of a reason why it was a good idea for Cole to kind of pull up and find his teammate, his brother, essentially, Nick Suzuki, kind of streaking through the middle. Ended up being a perfect pass and perfect goal there for Nick. And it ties the game up in a game where, that must have been, our first or second shot on goal in that period there. It was not pretty at all. Canadians only had 18 total shots on goal in the game total there, so it must have been one of our first shots on net, probably like a 7th, 8th total shot there. So good to find a way to tie this game up, and that really changed things for the Canadians in general. It kind of sucked the wind out of the sails of the Canes there. So it kind of gave us a little bit of life, a little bit of like runway to go with there, and that's exactly what happens as we keep going here. A couple minutes later, into the end of the second period there, Cole Caufield will, of course, it's Saturday night, Sunday night, doesn't matter. Cole Caufield is scoring. He gets his 46th goal of the season there. And it's just, again, like it's just Cole Caufield. He's lethal from everywhere. There's nowhere that Cole Caufield can't score from. He gets a nice little feed from, you guessed it, Hutson and Suzuki there, who find Caufield kind of streaking through the right side. He just kind of walks in and just rips one far side from the right wall there, and he just beats Freddie Anderson clean for his 46th goal of the season. And now look at that. I think he's gonna do it. I think obviously I don't want to jinx anything. I'm knocking on wood as we speak. But it looks like he's going to get to 50 goals here. He's only 4 goals away. We've got 9 games left of this NHL season here. So if he continues to play the way that he's playing, it looks like that might be the case. And he's only 2 back of Nathan MacKinnon as we speak. Obviously Nathan MacKinnon's got another 9 games to play as well, so it'll be an interesting race as we go down to the final few games here. But I think Caufield is very determined. He wants this, and obviously it's helping the team. So I think I think he's gonna get there. But either way, he gets his 46 here, and now we're just looking at 47, right? As Cole Caufield said. So a great goal there to give us the lead, a very undeserved lead, but we'll take it wherever we can get it. And then Nick Suzuki and Lane Hutson get their 65th and 62nd assists on that goal, respectively there. So both of those guys over 60 assists. Very impressive there as Nick Suzuki tracks towards his 100-point season as well. So we'll have to see what happens there, but it'll be very interesting to see. But again, a 2-1 lead there, and we definitely don't deserve to be in that position at all, but we will absolutely take it wherever we can get it, and that's exactly what we do. Take that 2-1 lead, and then to make matters even worse for the Canes, they take a penalty with 40 seconds left in the period there, and then Nick Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Demidov make quick work of that power play, and with 7 seconds left, it looks like in the on the app here, with 7 seconds left, Nick Suzuki gets a little double tap action and taps one home on the power play. Just great effort all around. It's good puck movement. We caught the Canes sleeping a little bit. The clock was winding down. They thought they were going to go back to the drawing board down 2-1, but we do a nice job of moving the puck around. Demidov corrals the puck, finds Slavkovsky. Slavkovsky makes a beautiful pass cross crease, finding Suzuki. Suzuki is as wide open as he's ever been on a power play there. There was absolutely nobody even close to him. He gets one opportunity to corral the puck. He takes another shot that gets saved by Freddie Anderson, but there's still nobody in there, so he just taps one more time, and it goes into the back of the net with 7 seconds left, and all of a sudden we go back to the locker room at the end of the second period, up 3-1 in a game where we're getting severely outshot. It's incredible that we were even in that position at all. Like it's incredible to be in that position where we had 14 shots on goal total in the entire game up to that point, which is the same amount of shots that the Canes took in the second period alone. So again, like it's ridiculous, but hey, we're not going to complain. Obviously, we're up 3-1 in this game here. It's a blessing to be there, and obviously we got to all everybody got to buy Jakub Dobeš a watch or something like that after this game to thank him for all of his effort there, potentially even too much effort. We watch out for potential injury there. It looked like there was something going on, but we got to cross our fingers obviously that he's going to be all right as we move forward here. But again, like you get that 3-1 lead, and then going into the third period, we never look back, there was a ton of chances that the Canes got in that last period there, but we also held them to 8 total shots in that third period, which is much less than they had gotten in any more periods there. We actually had 32 total block shots in this one, which is really, really impressive. And something I didn't know is actually Noah Dobson is actually leading the NHL in block shots this year, which is really impressive for him. It's something that I think definitely goes under the radar in terms of that stat and all that kind of stuff. But I think that obviously we saw today, Lane Hutson, Dobson, Carrier was blocking shots, Deneau was blocking shots. Like everybody played their role in getting this win here, and that's a big deal. And it's one of those things that you don't see on the leaderboards all too much, but it's a big deal to find a way to block some shots and do those little things, those things that don't exactly show up on the stats, don't show up on the highlights, that get you those wins. And that's exactly what the Canadians do throughout that entirety of the third period to seal off this win here. And then again, like it's a big deal to do that, and that ends up getting us that win. So again, with that win, obviously considering the fact that everybody else is also winning games, it's not going to give us too big of a lead there, but we do have a pretty considerable lead on teams not in the playoffs right now. The Canadians sitting at 94 points, which is 3 points better than where they were last season. Obviously, we're shooting for bigger and better, and it's great to see that we're making consistent improvement year over year. But of course, we don't have as much of a lead over Boston anymore. It's the same as it's always been. We get a 2-point lead on them because they just keep winning games. Columbus lost in overtime. Of course, they get a point. They're sitting at 88 right now. So we got a 6-point lead on Columbus. We've got an 8-point lead on Ottawa and Detroit. So, we're getting in a good position in general to make the playoffs here. It looks like I would imagine our playoff percentage to make at this point is probably looking at like 97 or 98%, which is great. Obviously that doesn't mean too much until we actually have that X next to our name there. But, obviously we want to try to find a way to, get as many points as we can as we move forward in these last 9 games here. But it was great to see that we've kind of established a little bit of a lead here against the rest of the pack, Ottawa, Detroit, those guys that are the first teams out or whatever. We've got a pretty solid lead on them. And one thing that I think they were talking about in the broadcast a little bit is looking forward at Tampa Bay and Buffalo, and trying to see if maybe we can leapfrog over one of those guys. I think Buffalo hasn't exactly been playing as crazy as they have been in previous months or whatever. They're only 6-2-2 in their last 10 games, which is good. But there was times where they were 10-0-0 and they were just out unbeatable. So that, and Tampa Bay, we played Tampa Bay twice in these remaining 9 games here, starting with our next game coming up on Tuesday against them. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do there, and if we find a way to win both of those games, and Tampa kind of falters as we go down to the rest of the season here, it could be that the Canadians actually leapfrog them and move into second in the Atlantic, which would give us home ice advantage in the playoffs. So obviously we spent a lot of time over the last month or so, as we come down to the remainder of the season here, looking at everybody behind us, and trying to focus on making the playoffs and just making sure we don't fall back. But we also can look a little bit ahead and see, hey, maybe we can catch some of these guys ahead of us, get ourselves some home ice advantage in the playoffs. Not only making the playoffs, but getting game 1 in Montreal would be a big deal for the Canadians here. So everything is in play at this point. The East playoff race is just absolutely wild right now, so it'll be interesting to see where things shake up. But yeah, that is pretty much all I have for this one. It's a great win, not really in a lot of ways, but Dobeš stands tall. It's like a complete turn of events from where we were only a couple weeks ago. We were lamenting on our goaltending and wishing that we just had a couple more saves or whatever, and now all of a sudden we're winning a game against one of the best teams in the NHL because of our goaltender, as opposed to the play of anybody else on our team. And of course, when you get guys like Cole and Nick Suzuki finding ways to score, you're going to win games. So that plus, the goaltending being solid here is what carries us, to a win. And this one is our 5th win in a row. And now we just got to find a way to try to get as many points as possible in these last 9 games. And hopefully, within the next week or so, we'll have that X next to our name and we'll have clinched a playoff position here. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you after a big 2 points, hopefully keeping that win streak alive on the road against the Tampa Bay Lightning on Tuesday.